In this video, I'm going to share some important tips and tricks in this game that you really should know about, and mistakes you don't want to make in this game. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into this. One of the first ones is don't do this dungeon unless you really are sure you want to complete it. It's called Core Dragon. The reason being, you can go here and do this easy farm. It's not the absolute fastest farm in the game, but it's up there for fast farms. And the main thing is this farm is just really, really simple and easy to do. A very chill farm to do. So don't do this dungeon until you're, or not, don't do the stronghold until you're actually ready to do it. Because like you can see here, it's just a nice place to just farm. After you kill all the enemies, you can leave game and then come back in and it'll reset the whole thing and put you back at the entrance. Like that, leave game, and you go back in, it'll put you back at the start of the place, and then you get your ultimate back, you get all your potions back, and all the enemies are back, and you can just do it again and again and again. It's a pretty nice farm, so definitely don't do the stronghold until you're ready. The next mistake you really want to avoid is you don't want to forget about special quests, or priority quests as they're called. So when you're leveling, depending on what class you are, you'll get ones for special things. For example, the sorcerer at, I think, at level 15 gets a quest in there for enchantments. And if you're just speed running through the story, not paying attention, you might go through your whole game all the way to level 100, not even realizing you have extra abilities that can make you survive better or do more damage. Necromancers get the golem summon, for example. Druids get spirit boon, which they need terribly. So every class has got different things like that. And not only that, but there's other things as well, like getting your horse or getting the Tree of Whispers, or lots of other helpful things that will pop up in here. So check on it every so often and make sure you're not missing something really important. Another really awesome thing you don't want to miss out on, open the map, and when you look over a region, you'll see at the top right, it'll say View Rewards. Now on PC, it's W by default to view rewards. If you're on a console, you'll see what button it says up there. And you can go to here and you can look at each region and see what your renowned is. The main thing here is the potion capacity. That is the huge thing that's super nice. But also keep in mind that all these rewards are cross characters. They're all your characters. So if you get all these rewards, you can make a brand new character, and at level 1, that character can have 10 skill points and have all these paragon points. I don't think they can actually use them until they're level 50 though. And more importantly, the potion capacity. The potion capacity is the most important thing to get, and it's pretty easy to get. In order to get renowned, just do things in here, get waypoints. Side quests I would avoid. I'd mainly just do the waypoints, discover the areas, and then do a few side dungeons to get the potion in each place. If you're not in a super huge hurry to hit level 100, then I would definitely take the like 30 minutes to an hour, maybe 2 hours to get all these potion capacities, because having more potions makes your life way easier in this game. On that same line of thought as potions, do not forget to upgrade them. You can go to this alchemist here in Kyovashad, talk to them, and craft, and you can upgrade how much of the potions heal you as their base amount. They'll always heal you for 35% of your maximum life, no matter what level they are, but you can get to where that initial button press gives a huge boost to life. The biggest kink that you'll run into, I think, was the minor healing potion, I think it was, and it uses crushed beast bones, which you can find from beasts like spiders and lichens and whatever. It's just a super rare drop, so you'll probably have to kill like 1,000 spiders and lichens or whatever in order to finally get 5 of them. Maybe you'll do that. There's some boss somewhere that no matter it drops 5, but the main thing is just grind the spiders and the lichens. Another thing you need to know about in this game, and you don't want to sleep on, is the Murmuring Obols. So this is a currency you get from doing events. There's an event right here occasionally, by the way, down here, one up here. They're all over the place. One there, you'll find them all over the place. There'll be like an orange ring on the mini-map, and you go there and you do some event. You have to like follow a ghost spirit around or kill a bunch of enemies or put spirits to rest. And inside of those, there'll be chests. Once you complete those, there'll be chests. You get Murmuring Obols as well as random loot and stuff. If you end up with a lot of those, the currency's down here, by the way, at the bottom right of your inventory. If you have those, you can go to this guy, this person, the Purveyor of Curiosities right here in the southeast of Kyovashad, and you can turn them in for different pieces of gear. And this gear will have like about a 1 in 4 chance of giving legendaries. So that was a very bad roll, but it's usually about 1 in 4 will give you a legendary. And that's just a great way to get some guaranteed legendaries as you're leveling up. And speaking of leveling up, while you're leveling up, you definitely should keep an eye out for gear that kind of revolves around the build that you want. For example, this build that I have is the Arc Lash build as a sorceress, so I'm looking for things that make me do more damage when I'm close, things that increase my basic attack damage, things that give me attack speed, you know. So you're going to find what build you like, and you're going to want to, as you're playing and as you're leveling, try to find gear that synergizes with that build in order to make yourself do better, do more damage, and, you know, survive better so that you can level faster, just have an easier time in general playing the game. The next big mistake you don't want to make in this is with world tiers. So all the way until you get Nightmare, when your only options are Adventurer or Veteran World Tier 1 or 2, for most players, you're just going to want to play an adventurer world tier 1. While you do get 20% increased XP in veteran, for most classes and most builds, it's going to actually slow you down enough to where the 20% does not outweigh the how much slower you go with it. And the gear drops on these two are identical. It doesn't matter if you play 1 or 2, you have the same percentage chance of getting legendaries, same chance of getting rares. Everything is the same as far as loot. It literally just the enemies are more annoying. They do more damage. They have more health. They're more likely to jump away from you when you're trying to fight them and stuff. So Adventurer is good all the way until you get Nightmare later on. And then speaking of Nightmare, if you're wondering how to get Nightmare, you have to complete the entire main story. So all your missions under this tab right here, quests under this tab, the yellow one. And after that, you'll be at least level 45 by that point in order to complete it, basically. But you want to go a little bit further. You'll want to get somewhere between level 50 and 53, ideally 53. And then you'll want to do the capstone dungeon. To do that, you go to this world tier statue right here in Kyovashad, change it to veteran, and then you go to the capstone dungeon. It's right there in the Cathedral of Light for the first one. And you have to beat it. The final boss is kind of a bitch on that one, but if you can beat him, then you'll get world tier 3. And once you get that, you're kind of always going to want to play on it. Starts at level 53, so if you beat that before level 53, you're going to struggle on it at first. Well, from 53 on, Nightmare's not so bad if you have a decent build. And then you have a chance of getting sacred items. All the drops are better, and the XP is way better. And that generally is it's going to be faster. Like 100% increase in XP is actually worth it, whereas the 20% is not worth it. And then also, speaking of capstone dungeons, once you hit 70, the other one's right here in case you were curious. So once you get 70 plus, you can start trying to beat the Fallen Temple, and then you'll be able to get Torment, which is World Tier 4. And from that point on, if you can, you're always going to want to play on Torment because of the chance for ancestral items and just better loot in general, basically. End game, you know, just working towards the end game. You'll always want to play in Torment. Something else you need to know about, and this is huge, a mistake you do not want to make. So when you get legendary gear, you have 2 options. Well, you have 3 options, I guess. You can literally throw it on the ground. But the main 2 options are you can salvage it over at the blacksmith, which will give you crafting materials for imprinting the aspects to another piece of gear. So if I put on a Codex of Power, you know, we can use these coiling wards, which I would get from salvaging legendary armor, for example. Or the other thing you can do with one you don't want is you can extract the aspect. I guess you can also sell them at the store for random gold, but that's not really, that's an option, but not an option in a way. But anyway, the reason this is important. So the Codexes of Power, there's all these ones that you can get by completing dungeons. And that's cool and all, and there's some good ones in here. But there's a lot of aspects that are not in here. There's aspects you cannot get just from unlocking them in the Codex of Power. And those are the ones that are the most interesting sometimes. So there's one that will make you restore life every second when you're near enemies. That one's not going to be in this list. So there's things like that. But that's not the only reason that you're going to want to be careful with your legendaries. Another reason is you'll see things like, say, this Flame Shield one. And whatever, the last part there says 2.5 seconds. That amount can change. And whenever you imprint something with a Codex of Power, it will always give you the absolute minimum on one of those, the smallest amount it can possibly give. But when you find legendaries naturally, you can find them with an increased amount of any aspect. So for example, this chest piece has this random thing on it that taking direct damage has a 2% chance to reset the cooldown of one of my defensive skills, which I love that. But that can go way higher on an initial piece, and I made a mistake that you do not want to make. I was like level 20, and I had a random piece of armor that had the same thing, but instead of 2%, it was 5%. And I could have extracted that aspect, and then I could have imprinted it, which is down here then. It'd be like right in here somewhere. And I could have then imprinted that one like that onto a new piece of gear, and instead put that on a new piece of gear. And then I could have all this time had this awesome chest piece with 5%. And that would have been awesome. But instead, I salvaged it, not realizing how it worked just yet, that there's minimums and maximums, and that finding gear is better than crafting it with the Codexes of Power. So keep that in mind. I'm going to make a full legendary crafting guide at some point, probably tomorrow. But keep that in mind. Be careful about destroying your legendaries. Make sure if it's something you might want, if it's going to be something with a good, has a really high power buff on it compared to standard power, then definitely extract it and keep it in your aspects for later. And while we're at the Occultist, which was right here, I don't know if I showed it, but he's right here, okay? While we're at the Occultist, there's something else that's really important. So he has this last tab called Enchanting Items. So say I can go on this item and say I don't want the shrine buff duration. I can click this and I can click enchant and I can change it out and he'll give me new options. And on those options, if I don't like any of them, I can just cancel basically, but it'll still use the resources. But I could cancel, but I can keep doing that until I can customize a gear to have exactly what I want basically. So you can keep doing that in order to slowly strengthen your gear and give it better stats or stats that you want. But the catch is it's going to use veiled crystals, which are basically free. I mean, you'll end up with so many of these late games, not a big deal. The big problem is the Fiend Rose. In order to get that, you've got to unlock World Tier 3. Once you unlock World Tier 3, you'll start to be able to see hell tides, which there are none on the map right now, but they're very obvious when they are here. A whole region will just have, instead of that background right here where it's like this brownish color, it'll be red instead for a whole region. You can go there and run around and kill enemies to get these special resources and then turn them in for legendaries at random like ribcage looking things on the map. But when you're running around in those areas, some enemies have a chance of dropping the Fiend Rose, and just like how you find random glint berries or whatever they're called, you'll randomly see plants that are Fiend Roses, and you can harvest them and get Fiend Roses. So that's how you get those, and if you can get those, then you can keep on replacing your affixes on your gear and slowly getting your gear customized exactly how you want it, which is extremely helpful, not only along the way, but especially once you hit level 100 and you're trying to get that perfect gear set. And speaking of nightmare, mid-game, end-game type stuff, on your way to the end game, if you're trying to level as fast as possible, when you're doing those main story quests, just run past every enemy, skip everything that you're willing to skip. Do not fight something unless it tells you to fight something. Otherwise, literally just ignore all enemies and run right past them, because the main story up until the final mission will scale to your level. It's faster just to do the main story as quickly as possible, killing as few of enemies as possible. And then once you get to the point where it's like there's like near the end, it'll have missions where you have to be level 45 because all the enemies are 45. Once you hit that point and you're severely under-leveled, then you can go to a random dungeon that you like and go grind it over and over and over again, and that'll be a way faster way to get through the main story than to try to kill every enemy you see in the main story to stay the correct level. And also, while we're on that topic, if you want a really good dungeon farm that's super good, this is the one people did to get to level 100. Now, they may nerf it at some point, but when I made this video, it still works, is you can go over here to the Untamed Scarps in the Dry Steppes, and you can go to this dungeon called Champion's Demise and just AoE farm big groups of enemies. And there's like, it's best for the party because it splits into 3 paths every time. You can have one guy go one way, one guy go another way, and 2 people go another way. Clear, all 3 paths, and then have one person leave the party, and then have everyone rejoin someone else as they join. It'll reset the dungeon. Or if you're solo, you just farm it. It's still good. And then you just get out of the dungeon, and then once you're out of the dungeon in the open world, leave game, and then start game again. It'll reset the dungeon, you go back in. Although on solo, sometimes when you do that, it'll kick you back to a random town. Still faster, though, and then you just run back to it. It'll still be faster than waiting. Normally, it takes like 2 minutes for a dungeon to reset otherwise. And while we're talking about all that stuff, something else that you really want to keep in mind is once you complete the main story, there's something you really want to do. There will be a mission, a quest in here. I forget the name of it, but it's with the guy who you went through the whole main story with. And it's a very short mission, and it'll unlock this. It's called the Tree of Whispers. And once you have that, it'll pop up all these icons on the map that reset every so often. I think they last for an hour and a half. And then you can do things like, I could go to this dungeon, and if I do this dungeon, once I complete it, not only am I doing the dungeon, but I also get 5 Grim Favors. And then once I get 10, you can also do these random ones, like do this little cellar, and you'll get 1. Or do this thing where you kill enemies, they drop seeds of hatred, and you get 100. And then once you have 100, you just go up to something, turn them in, and then kill something, and you're done. There's different ones of these, and you do them. Every time you get 10, head back to the Tree of Whispers and turn them in. It'll give you a cache of items that have legendaries in them, but that's not what's so important about that. After you do a certain number of them, I don't know if it's random or if it's set to be 5. For me, it was 5, and just the fact that it's 5 specifically made me think it's always 5, but maybe that's just random. I don't know. But eventually, you'll get this, and this is once you have Nightmare difficulty unlocked. You have to have World Tier 3, have to have completed the story to do all this. And then what you'll be able to do is you'll have in your consumables these things called Nightmare Sigils. And then what you can do is you can right-click and use those, and it'll, like, show it as a dungeon then. Like, it'll change one of the dungeons to a Nightmare dungeon. And then, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and do one after this, making this video, so I'll just go ahead and use one. And then open the map, and it'll immediately go to it. But if you don't see it, just look around. It'll be this dungeon with this weird icon on it. So then go there and do it, and then you'll be, once you do that, the dungeons will actually give you more Nightmare Sigils than you use, and you'll eventually keep collecting them. You'll get started on the Nightmare Sigil path. I just posted a video about that. If you want to see that, I'll try to link that in the description of this video. But you want to get started on that because that is how you level up your level up your glyphs for your Paragon board and make them have a bigger radius size, make them give more stats and things. It just makes them way stronger. It's a great way to get stronger. So you definitely want to get working on that as soon as you can and get it leveled up a bunch, and then you'll just get way stronger, way faster, and then go on with leveling, and you'll probably level faster overall by doing that. And on that same train of thought as the Nightmare Dungeons, depending on what your goals are in this game, what you think will be fun, if you're not in the biggest rush of your life to hit level 100, then something that could be very fun and smart to do is do those Nightmare Sigils, do those Nightmare Dungeons, and every time it's going to have you go to a random dungeon. Like this dungeon right here, you see that little icon, that chest? I've never done this dungeon before on this character. So because of that, just by coincidence of me leveling up my glyphs, it'll also bait me into slowly doing all of the side dungeons in each region. So I could just do that, and by the time I'm done with it, I'll have done a ton of my side dungeons, which will have got me a ton of renown. I'll have all my potion capacities done. I might even have the skill points for a lot of these regions. It's just kind of a win-win scenario, and I get to level up at an okay rate still, because I'm still doing dungeons, and dungeons are very fast for leveling, even if it's not the ideal dungeon each time, but they're still good for leveling. So you're leveling at a decent pace, you're getting renowned, you're doing these completions of side dungeons, and at the same time, you're leveling up your glyphs. So it's kind of a win-win scenario in the mid-game when your level is like 55 through 70. Just do that and get stronger, and it'll make it easier to complete your level 70 capstone dungeon once you get to that point of the game. Another tip, and this is a mistake you do not want to make. I made this mistake once already, but it's not a huge deal, but my god, can it be a huge deal if you do it at the wrong time. So you know how I used that Nightmare Sigil? I could go to this Nightmare Dungeon. If I were to leave game right now, even if I come back in immediately, I never tried doing it coming in immediately, but I know I went AFK for 20 minutes and came back in, and it basically deleted it. It was not on the map anymore. My sigil was gone. It was gone. So for your first sigil ever, you want to be very careful and make sure you actually use it. You want to go through a few of them and get a few of them in there in your consumables before you start being lazy and let something like that happen. Now, I know someone out there, I guarantee you someone out there got totally shafted on that, and they used their first one ever, and then the game, like, server went down, or they disconnected or something, and then it deleted it, and they had to go do 5 more Tree of Whisper quests or something. That would suck. Don't let that happen. You do not want that to happen as much as you can help it. Well, guys, those are the most important tips and tricks. I'm sure I have plenty more to share with you, but this video is already 17.5 minutes long at this point. It's going to be even longer by the time I'm done with my spiel here. So I hope that helped you out, guys. I'll post again later in the future with more things maybe, but those are a bunch of mistakes you don't want to make, a bunch of tips and tricks that you need to know about that will help you a ton, that'll save you frustration, that'll make you have more fun, and make you enjoy your stay here in Diablo 4 a lot more.